Oh, we're live, y'all. We are live. Let's see. I don't know who's here. Here we go. Let's pull that out for now. Be like 2 minutes to go, so let's just start.
Battleground state in the race for the White House.
Hope you guys can hear that.
The current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as
Hopefully.
their party's presumptive
Hopefully you
nominees
can hear that, because
in American history.
that
We
would
want to
suck if
welcome
you
our
can't.
viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential
see.
debate.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN,
CNN
Max,
everywhere.
and
CNN.
This is a pivotal
You can watch this at
moment between
CNN.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump.
Both of these
in a
guys are
rematch for the
clowns.
nation's highest office. Each will make its
Yeah.
case to the American people.
I don't know,
with
man.
just over 4 months until Election Day.
I think they're a
Good
little too
evening, I'm
smart.
Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside
I had to lean in
Politics
for
and
the.
co-anchor
You got to
of
type
State
words. I
of the
can't
Union.
see all
I'm
these
Jake Tapper,
emojis.
anchor of CNN's The Lead and
Jake
co-anchor of State of
Tapper.
the Union.
Fake
Dana and I
Tapper,
will
as we know.
co-moderate this evening. Our job
Dana,
is to
gonna
facilitate
bash Trump?
a debate between the two candidates
See what I did there?
tonight. Before we
We have
introduce them, we want to
snacks.
share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President
Okay,
Trump
here come
will
the
be on
rules.
the left side of the screen.
Trump will be
President
on the
Biden
left.
will be appearing on
Oh.
the right. A coin toss
I see.
determines their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question
So
and 1
Trump
minute
is on the
each for
left.
responses.
We got
and
carne asada
rebuttals.
steak
An
strips
additional minute for follow-up
and A&W
clarification
root
for
beer
response
and Pepsi.
is at the
because
moderator's
Pepsi is red, white, and blue.
When
And
it's
I have my
time
Cubs
for a
shirt on,
candidate to
red, white, and
speak,
blue.
his microphone will
America.
be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home.
I
At
think
the end
Trump's
of the
going to
debate,
yell
each
over
candidate will
people,
get 2 minutes.
and I think
for
that's going to be
closing
really
statements.
funny.
There is
Michael
no
Bubbles, oh
studio
my God, this
audience
brought you
tonight.
back?
Pre-written notes, props, or contact
Trying to
with
get rid of
campaign
cans.
staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to
We're gonna
debate
recycle.
both candidates and their campaigns,
So you guys can
agreed
hear
to
okay, right?
accept
This is the first time I'm ever doing
Now, please welcome
reaction
the
stuff.
46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
I can't believe Michael Bubbles is here. This is like, I'm going to restart the whole channel. Oh, you don't know how excited. There he is. There's my guy. All right. I'm
And
a
please
little
welcome
biased.
the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Oh, I knew he'd come out like this. Look at him coming out confrontational. Coming in hot. No audience. That's a really bad Trump impression.
Gentlemen,
Sorry.
thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's
Where
start
am I?
with the issue that voters
Who are
consistently
you?
say is their top concern, the economy.
That's my old Jewish
President
Biden.
Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high.
That's true.
Since you took office, the price of
you
essentials
gonna do
has
about it?
increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120.
There we go.
And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%.
Oh, yeah.
What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president
There you
and
go.
what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed.
He's coming in
No
hot with the
jobs.
bleach.
Unemployment rate rose to
I
15%.
was not
It
expecting
was
that.
terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again.
He is right.
That's
He walked
exactly
into
what
some
we began to
bullshit.
do.
Mugshot
We
Vibes is
15,000
right.
new jobs.
Oh,
We
we're going to
brought
be
out
going
the position
full
where
cursing
we have
tonight. I'm sorry. It's going to be
800,000
uncut.
manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be
Yeah,
done.
there's more to be
Working
done.
class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I
Oh,
come
here
from
we go.
households
Scranton.
where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure
Price of Alzheimer's
we deal with
medication.
those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make
I don't
sure
want to hear
we-
about Scranton all night.
too
I'm
many
from
new
Scranton,
units.
Pennsylvania.
We're going to make
Let
sure
me
we
tell you.
cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now.
He's
In addition to
he's
that,
not wrong.
we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration,
This looks so
he
good.
didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things
That's
back
true.
together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where
Ooh.
we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people.
Sure
To
did. That was big.
$15 for for a insulin shot as opposed to $400.
That was big,
No
you
senior
guys.
has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans.
Good.
So we're working to bring down the price of around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you, President Trump.
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation is killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Partly true. The first
Well,
part's
the greatest
true.
economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where
He's got an earbud.
his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history.
He did.
$2 trillion.
He did have that.
He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, that's
the
COVID.
idea that he did
COVID,
something
Joe.
that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan.
That's
He
true.
didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still
Trump's going to
ourselves in a
slam him on
position
that
where
Afghanistan
you
thing.
had the notion that
He's going
we
to give
were
him.
this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President
you
Trump,
started
I
hot.
want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow
Nice,
up. You
Jake.
want to
Keep it
impose a
together.
10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S.
He
How will
does.
you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things.
pause
But
this?
he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history.
You
That's
give
why
me
we
a
had all the
tax
jobs.
cut. I'll tell you
And the
that.
jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months.
That is not
And then
true.
it blew up under his leadership because they spent money
That is
like
not true,
a
buddy.
bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan,
Your taxes
is
went up. Was
concerned,
that local
I was
taxes
getting out
or
of Afghanistan, but we were getting out
my Fed
with
taxes haven't
dignity,
gone
with
up.
strength.
So my state taxes
power?
have gone up. Property
He got
taxes
out.
have
It was
gone
the
up.
most embarrassing day
I'm
in
in
the
Illinois.
history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your
Oh.
administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis,
It's weird they
President
wouldn't
Trump, your
extend that.
administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. While so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set
Didn't
to
do
expire
shit.
next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt,
Yeah, here we go.
why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even
Nah.
after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we
No,
spurred
the
that
money
tax
you
spurred.
fucking
Now,
stole.
when we cut the taxes, as an
Gave it to
example,
us.
the
By stole,
corporate
I
tax
mean,
was cut down to 21%
appropriated.
from 39%.
to just throw
plus
checks at
beyond that,
people.
We took in more revenue with
Which
much
helps.
less
Which
tax.
helps. The checks
And
helps,
companies
but
were bringing back
they went to
trillions
our
of
deficit.
dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before. And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our
they
feet.
were ready. They
The
were
oil
ready.
and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people to his administration.
This is
than
the guy
our
that's
administration,
still
and we
shitting
were
on
right in the middle
Fauci,
of
who
it.
got us
Something
the
which a
vaccine
lot of
and
people don't like to
the
talk
COVID
about.
mandates.
But he had far more people
But he's taking
dying
credit
in
for
his
it.
administration.
Crazy.
He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will,
I
why
love how he
allowed
just blames
millions
people
of
for stuff
to
he
come in here
did.
from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
He puts
President
it in there.
Trump, we will get to immigration
like the stuff that
later
he
in
did
this block. President Biden,
that he says
I
other
want to give you an
people did.
opportunity to respond to this question about
I
the
love that
national
shit.
debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one.
He sure did. But that was
Number
COVID.
two,
Part of that was
that
COVID, Joe.
$2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy.
100% true.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period.
Joe, you got to get it
We'd be able
together.
to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help.
They did not give him
make
enough
sure that all
cocaine
those
and
things
Mountain
we
Dew.
need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen
on,
our
Mike, stay with
healthcare
us.
system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look,
Joe.
If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them
They're
on
not putting them on
Social Security.
Medicare.
They're going to destroy
not,
Social
you
Security.
liar.
This man is going to single-handedly
Illegal immigrants don't qualify
destroy
for any of
Social
those
Security.
things.
These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to
Biden's
put them on
jacked
Social
up. I don't know if
Security.
they like
He
kept
will
him off of
wipe out
coffee to
Social
show that he
Security.
wasn't
He
on
will
drugs.
wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame.
No, Trump,
What's
you and your
happened
boys are
to our
trying to come
country
after Medicare
in
and
the last 4
Social
years
Security.
is not to be believed. Foreign
Those
countries,
aren't,
I'm friends with a lot of
Those
people.
are not
They cannot
entitlements.
believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer
We earned
respected.
those.
They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump.
Criminal.
This is the first presidential election since the
that's the pot
Supreme
calling
Court
the kettle
overturned
black
Roe
right
v.
there.
Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned
so
the
angry.
issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the
this
federal
make him look
government
tough?
still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills.
Here we go.
They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
Nope.
Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into
after
other
about
things.
30
But
minutes.
every
This is gonna
legal
be funny.
scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that.
No, they didn't.
Now the states are
No,
working it
that's
out.
a
If you look at
bull-faced
Ohio,
lie.
it was a decision that was.
I can't imagine he knows more than
a
3
little bit more
scholars.
liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is
Joe,
different.
Joe,
Florida
get
is
the
different.
camera off of
But
Joe.
they're
Just
all
put it
making
on
their own
Biden.
decisions right now.
Just put it on
And right
Joe.
now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the
Quoting
exceptions.
Reagan.
Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And
Follow your heart.
because that has to do with other things.
Follow
You
the
got to get elected.
science.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will
They're not
take the
radical.
life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth.
That
After
is-
birth, if you look at the
that's not
former
a
governor
thing.
of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it
That
back to
never,
the states,
ever
and the
happened. That
country
is a
is
myth.
now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that
Oh,
the
here he
vast
goes.
majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided.
He should keep
Support it,
fake
Roe.
coughing.
And
I need to
that
stop just
that's-
making
this
fun of
idea
Biden.
that they were all against it is just ridiculous.
He's all just, yeah.
And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states
Yeah.
are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have
You
been,
just nodded
including
yesterday.
a young woman who just was murdered.
Putting civil rights
And
back to the
he
states.
went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women
Yeah, they
being
shit it
raped
up
by
and
their
politicized that little
in-laws, by
girl,
their-
which
by
sucks.
their
Like that little
spouses,
girl's death sucks, but
brothers and sisters.
they
by-
made it this whole
it's just-
anti-immigration
it's just
thing, and
ridiculous, and they can do
it's sad.
nothing
It's
about
the
it.
saddest thing
And
in
they
the
try
world.
to arrest
but,
them
like,
across state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our
and
border.
you know,
We have a border
lot of
that's
other
the most
people.
dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country.
most
And
dangerous
they
place.
are raping and killing
They're supposed to be
women.
Mexico.
And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting.
They're coming for
in
the
many
women.
cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't.
They did.
But they
We had
wanted that
abortions when the
everybody
country was
wanted
founded.
brought
We had
back.
abortions.
Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had
Yeah.
tried to get it back. I
Ronald
was the
Reagan
one
killed
to
the
do
middle
it. And
class,
again, this
just so
gives
we're
it
clear.
the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
No, it's
Staying
not.
on the
What are you
topic of
talking
abortion,
about?
President Biden, 7
If he could
states.
cite two people,
I'll let you do that. This is the same topic.
I would
7
take
states
it.
have
7
no
states.
legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion.
Joe,
Do you
Joe,
support
fix
any
your face.
legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making
That's
those
true.
decisions. That's how it
That's true.
should be run. That's what you're going to do.
Maybe not
And
Dr.
if I'm
Ronnie
elected, I'm
Jackson.
going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can
Take
take
me
the life
sneezes.
of the baby
I know
in the
Joe's
9th
face is
month
bad.
and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia,
It's not after
put
birth.
the baby down, then we decide what to do with it.
The governor did not put the baby
he's
down.
willing to,
So
as we
stupid.
say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen. Democrat
You're
or
right.
Republican.
Nobody wants that to
Nobody
happen
wants it to
because it
happen.
doesn't happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance.
It's
When a
100%
woman's
true.
life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Under
a
Roe
lot of
v. Wade,
periods.
you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state.
No.
You can do whatever you want. We don't think
What are you
that's a
talking
good
about,
thing. We
depending
think
on the
it's a
state?
radical thing. We
Your
think the
4 states
Democrats are the
state.
radicals, not the Republicans.
For
Wait, what's
51
not true?
years, that was the
Jesus.
law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years. and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill?
Pygmy
I'll
Sneeze is
veto
like
it.
the
He'll
cutest
sign it.
name ever, by the way.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch.
That's true.
Overwhelming border
That's true.
states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation
That's
where
true.
when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated.
Obama
That's
built
not
those
the right way to
cages,
go.
but yes.
What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border
This is
legally.
true.
That's better than when he left office.
40%
And I'm going to
fewer
continue to
people.
move until we get the total ban on
Asylum seekers, at least.
total
Those
initiative
numbers are a little
relative
wonky,
to
but
what we're
it's
gonna
asylum
do with
seekers.
More
So
border
who
patrol and more
seek out border patrol.
asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
There you go. There you go.
we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our
Nope.
country to
It didn't change the laws.
people that are from prisons.
Biden didn't change anything
People that
except
are
keeping
from
people out of
mental
cages, kept families
institutions,
together.
insane asylum,
Well,
terrorists. We
later.
have the largest number of terrorists
Later.
coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all
Do we?
over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I
coming
said
in?
close the border. We had the
I can't
safest
find any
border in
information
history.
on
In the
terrorists
final
coming in.
couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to
Migrants
Border
from
Patrol,
all
who
over,
was
yes.
great. And by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that. But they endorsed me for president.
You did say that.
Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been
Here we
anything
go.
like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the
Here we
largest
go.
domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote.
Did
Does
we
that
lose
mean that you
Pygmy
will deport
Sneezes?
every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so,
grumpy.
how will you do
He's
it?
got his
Just 1
serious
second.
face
He
on.
said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying.
Really?
And also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now
You're
a
smart
border.
not to answer this
And because
question.
of his ridiculous, insane,
love that they're
and very
putting the
stupid
question up.
policies, people are coming in and they're killing our
yeah, okay.
citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it
I didn't know where
migrant
you were
crime.
headed on that, Pygmy.
I call it
I'm not
Biden
sure who you
migrant
are.
crime. They're killing our
welcome.
citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and
Incredible young
he just
girls.
had the funeral for this
There's one girl.
12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast.
It's their staff.
Because they're going to destroy our country.
President
Just take a
can't
look
do
at where
everything.
they're living. They're living in luxury
There's
hotels
the top guy. No,
in
they're
New
not.
York City and other places.
No, they're not.
Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about
No,
our
they're
veterans.
not.
He doesn't care. He
You
doesn't
didn't
like
do
the
shit for
military at
veterans.
all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in.
It's so funny he would say that because all he did was undo everything Obama did.
Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families
PACT Act is solid.
Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And he opposed his group opposed that. We're also in a situation.
It's also going to cover 9/11 first responders.
My son spent a year in Iraq.
Who?
Living one of the next
To be fair,
one.
still getting screwed
back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Yeah.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me.
Star families to
it was
their
made
face.
up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side was on your staff who said you said it, period.
4-star general.
Number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
He's right.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its 3rd year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy.
Up.
They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had.
That's what you call
they can't
him.
stand him. So let's get that straight.
Disrespectful cunt.
And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and
Ukraine, won't talk about Russia.
If we had a real president, a president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers.
Just make up numbers.
He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible, embarrassing, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. That when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment
Walk in front
behind.
of
We lost 13 beautiful
This is
soldiers,
CNN.
and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take my. This was his dream.
To be fair,
I talked to him
Trump
about it.
promised
His dream.
to get people
the
out
difference is he never would have invaded
2 weeks before Biden
Ukraine.
did.
Never. Just like Israel would
Actually
have
did.
never been invaded in a million
Israel was
years by
invaded?
Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for
plenty of money.
anything. No
And
money
you
for
broke the
terror.
Iran
That's why you
Contra.
had no terror at all
You gave
during my
Iran
administration.
back nukes.
This place, the whole
Bro.
world is blowing up under him.
President
Yeah.
Biden?
Yeah.
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look,
There it
the fact
is.
of the matter is that we're in a
Malarkey.
situation where, let's take the last point first.
Come on, Joe.
Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They
Yeah,
attacked.
that's true.
He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing.
That's
when the
exactly
attack took
true what it
place,
was.
number one.
That's 100%
Number
true.
two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a
It was
situation
still
where,
shitty, Joe.
if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute,
did
I just
say
want to
that.
go back to my original question,
Said
which
on
is,
live
are
TV.
Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war
They're
that
not
never should have
acceptable.
started. If we had a leader
No.
in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that
There has.
Zelensky
There
comes
has.
to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm
It's
not
not
knocking
sales,
anything.
but okay.
I'm only saying
Everything is a
the
sale
money
with
that
this
we're
guy.
spending on this war, and
Unbelievable.
we shouldn't be spending. It should have never happened. I will have that war
It was going to
settled
happen
between Putin and Zelensky
in a
as
day.
president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have
Oh.
that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I
Yeah.
will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
Get it
You
settled
know,
you
before
have
he
a minute.
takes them. Do it now.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has
True.
made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll
That's
stop
true.
there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do. Because
Hey, Moon.
if in fact he does what he says and walks away,
Moon shows up
by
for
the
this
way,
one.
all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's
Yep,
why
that's
that's
true.
why we're strong.
It's tit for
Thank
tat.
you. Moving
But
on
it's
to the
all the
Middle
allies
East.
together
In
have given as
October,
much as us.
Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not
Everybody's
released
behaving really
the
well.
remaining
I thought this
hostages,
would
and
be
Israel is
just
continuing
a shit
its
show
military
of them
offensive in
just
Gaza.
jabbering on
So
and
what
on.
additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Stop
Number one.
funding Israel.
Everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one.
No.
We're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard
It's Netanyahu, but that's
to get
okay.
them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel
Well, probably they
was
both want the war to
2,000-pound
continue.
bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them.
And
by
the
the way,
2,000-pound
I'm the
bombs.
guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things.
That's true.
Hamas
That's true.
cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second.
There we go.
We have an ocean separating us. The
Yeah.
European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us.
NATO's not a business, you donkey.
You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
He's a weak
President
Palestinian.
Biden, you have a minute.
That's a weird burn.
Foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well.
He is going to pull out of NATO.
Ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe?
We got a couple people. Well, we're up to 3.
We have Putin continue to go into NATO. We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all.
They're blue and red ties. I just noticed
war
they're
he keeps
blue and
talking
red.
about. Go ahead. Let
Which
Putin
makes
go in
sense.
and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland.
Oh, they should have the flag pin. Whose is bigger?
What happens then? He has no
I
idea
think
what
Trump's
the hell
got a
he's
bigger
talking
flag
about.
pin.
And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea.
And a bigger mic.
Because they understand that this kind of dislocation
He's got a bigger
has a
chest
serious
mic right
threat to
here.
the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow
That's true.
up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see. But
Let me go
before we
back
do
to
that,
Ukraine.
The problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically.
They
Their
haven't.
economy is about the same size as the United
If
States.
you add them all
And they
up.
were no
If you add 'em
cars.
all up.
No, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay.
Yeah.
They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28
This is a secret meeting.
states at that time, nations at that time? And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came
Which
flowing
secret
in the
are we
next day
supposed
and
to
the
believe?
next month.
Come on, man.
But
Come
now
on,
we're
man.
in the same position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump,
Freedom
I wanna
ain't
ask
free,
you about
brother.
January 6,
Freedom ain't free.
2021, after you rallied your supporters that day,
No, here we
some
go.
of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore
Here
an
we go.
oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution.
See how he reacts.
What do you
folks.
say to voters
This
who
could be good.
believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th,
Call them
we had a
heroes.
great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
Isn't that what he did in Ukraine?
Left.
Isn't that
My
what he did in
question
Ukraine?
was,
Go
what do
after
you
Joe?
say to those voters who
Wasn't
believe
that
that you
quid pro
violated your
quo?
constitutional oath through your actions
Wasn't
and
he impeached
inaction
for that?
on January 6, 2021, and
Wow.
worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the
Here we go.
news from 2 days ago,
Here we go.
on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying,
She's a filmmaker.
no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day.
I didn't see that. I don't know what to say about that.
She can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no.
Can I
He
pause
went
this?
to every single court in the nation.
I don't know if I want to pause it.
I don't know how many cases.
Let me see. So we'll pause it. So wait, so I'm clear. So Trump is saying that he was going to call the National Guard on these people, that he offered National Guard to stop these people, which implies that they're super criminals. National Guard doesn't go after regular dudes. But he's going to pardon them because they're being held hostage. I just want to be clear that that's what's being said.
Scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Let's talk about Ukraine.
Some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people when they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed.
What's he talking about?
When you look at all of
Is he talking about George Floyd?
They took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately.
Oh, yeah, when they took over that city,
said
that part of the city.
This whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
I don't know what he's talking about.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was
should have
going
wrote
on
lies on the bottom of his tie and like just pointed it.
Every one of those who were convicted deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, the debates we had first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail. Yeah. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon.
He's not on the stage running for president.
His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. No. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son.
You did.
This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said.
He's getting mad. This is getting good.
You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong.
Joe's got to stop saying it's a lie. We've got to stop saying that.
Like our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give your minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal.
No one cares about
he
this
basically
stuff.
went after his political
talk
opponent
about what you're
because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are.
I'm just talking over this.
But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken hundreds of millions of dollars because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases.
Some of them have said they want an autocrat. This time
he's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place?
I think that was Kanye.
I decided.
I don't know that was Trump. I think that was Kanye.
I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville.
He said a lot of shit. I don't think he said it.
People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas
Hitler had good ideas.
On torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones that got killed?" the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place.
Not great.
Every anchor every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked.
The very fine people on both sides.
Nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried about like this guy to get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea.
Now, to be fair, I don't think he was saying that the Nazis coming out of the fields were very fine people.
We saw what happened on
I don't think that's what was happening.
We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president.
Wait, what are we talking about? Put the question back up.
His 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more CNN presidential debate.
That could be it. That could be it. I'm no expert. All right, so what do we think? There's 4 of us still here. Where are we at on this? Who's winning? Who's doing this? Who's making this happen? You know what? Let me hit play again, and then I'll watch for the commercials to come back. I hate myself, but I think Trump's doing a better job of engaging. I hate it. I hate saying it. He's a performer. He's a performer. Sorry, I'm burping and farting through this whole thing. You can tell this is an impromptu episode. Yeah, I don't know. I think that they're both saying, one's saying nonsense, the other one's saying he's lying, and that's pretty much the whole thing so far. And we have had some good points. Let's go over some points, okay? Biden screwed the pooch on Afghanistan. The withdrawal was awful. Oh shit, these commercials are no joke. This commercial was something about Hitler was right.
Bystanders who raise their voices against injustice. When we stand up to
this had like a flaming swastika.
We stand up to all hate.
There we go. Who's this for? Oh, stand up to Jewish hate. Okay. Istanbul. It's not Constantinople. But yeah, I think this is wild. This one is wild. It's kind of nothing so far, which is kind of what the other debates were. Doesn't really go anywhere. You can tell when people are cornered when they go back to something that was said earlier that they didn't finish. Like, they need to just be done with it. I know it's hard to let it go in a minute, believe me. The king of rants, the king of rambling. I believe it. I understand. But holy cow. What does this ring do? Is this a magic ring? It floats? That's pretty dope. Oh, it watches your sleep? Does this one do something for your blood pressure too? Yeah. Beats per minute. Huh. Smart ring. That might be worth checking out. These are weird commercial choices. ZipRecruiter. There's one of these guys going to be looking for a job in a couple of months. Am I right? Hey, high five. So that's a good reason to have the ad. The beats per minute would be good to have those rings on these guys right now to see their heart rate go up after questions and stuff. that would be worth seeing. Yeah, I just don't know. What's Jon Stewart saying? I don't care. Oh, good. Daily Show correspondents. I mean, we all know what they're making fun of, even though Jordan Klepper is king. I want them to cover more. I want to hear about what they're going to do, not what they did. We all know what they did. What are their plans moving forward? Besides Make America Great Again, whatever that means. So if you like redlining districts, if you like gerrymandering a whole lot, if you like the minority of voters having power over the majority, yeah, all those things. I mean, I know where you can vote. It's just tough. This is a tough one. If there were any real moderates left, this would be pretty great. It could be a great country. Here we go. We're back.
Welcome back to the CNN presidential.
Can you imagine being on the
debate
street
live
and seeing this
from
stupid thing
Georgia.
and
Let's
falling
talk about
asleep?
persistent
How long have we been in
challenges
already?
You both faced in
Oh,
your
we're already
first
an hour in.
terms,
This is
and
good.
you'd certainly face again in a second term. President
Okay, here we
Biden,
go.
while black
is-
unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black
Yeah,
families
boy.
still earned far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Trevor not said anything.
In
It is
addition
the
to
same
that,
old
we
stuff. Like
find
watch
that
one of his rallies.
The impact of
It's boring.
the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece
That
of
is true.
legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We're going to make sure we provide for child
The
care
child tax
costs.
credit.
Gotta
We need
make
that back.
because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal
It's
so
not easy.
far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You
That's
have
the best thing
49
he said.
seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black
As a white
families
guy,
and
I'm okay
Black
with that.
individuals
As a white guy with a
provided
first time home that I didn't get that 10,000,
that were ballooning.
I'm okay with that. I got $10,000 from a relative.
Doctor and anything having to do with volunteerism. If they paid their bills for 10 years,
Yeah.
and their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming
There
inflation.
we go.
And he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families.
Causing inflation
and
for the
just about
whole
everybody.
world.
It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there,
What is the Green New scam? Is that the
fact
Green New
is
Deal?
that his big kill
That's not a thing.
on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're
No.
taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs.
The migrant workers that are taking like the busboy and the apple picking jobs, those are the Black jobs. Janitor jobs. Like, That's literally what he's saying. That's literally the jobs that most migrants come in to do. Could be like labor, a lot of labor jobs. Let's just say that. Labor jobs that white Americans don't want. Unemployed white Americans won't do those jobs to make money. They'd rather be on unemployment. But it's black jobs that they're taking. So, and Latino Americans. So, yeah, let's just be clear. That's what's being said.
And you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
Oh,
President Biden.
Something's coming.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment.
Boy.
He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered,
Could
the
be doing better.
ACA has
Could be doing
increased.
better.
I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea
They didn't try that
we're
hard.
not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity,
Wait, what?
and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation,
Wait,
he
right.
caused it by his.
Did Joe just say that Trump wants to take cops off the street? Did he just say that? Am I wrong? That's new. I haven't heard that.
Tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another
That's
persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are
hear what
confronting
Trump
the
says.
devastating
I bet he
effects of
talks about
extreme heat,
police. He's going to talk
intensifying
about
wildfires,
police.
stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump,
the
you
police
vowed
situation.
to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go back to
Yep.
what he said about the police.
Yeah. Oh, my
How
God.
close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the
My
black
sheriff neighbor is.
population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't
He
forget that.
did do
Super
that.
predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it. And now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job.
That was like
Great
40
senator
years
from
ago.
South Carolina. He
But he
came to me
did-
with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country. Opportunity zones, and the biggest beneficiary are blacks,
Opportunity
and
zones.
that's why we have the
Was
best
funny.
numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for
You gotta
black
find
people. He's also done a horrible
You
job
can't just
for
get out there on their own.
Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything.
What?
And yet, during
Wind
my
cancer?
4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been.
Look at him. Look.
The
What's he
idea
gonna say about that?
that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
Is he gonna
In
sneeze?
history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have those. They don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and all like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. He doesn't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water. cleanest water. He hadn't done a damn thing in the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord.
We did
I
get out of the
immediately
Paris
joined
Climate
it
Accord.
because if we reach 1.5
I want to
degrees
look that up
Celsius,
later. I want
at
to
any
see.
one point where there's no way back.
Bye,
The only
Michelle.
existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
It
And
doesn't
I ended it
cost
because I
anything,
didn't
like-
want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it.
You don't pay into it,
a
you
disaster.
dickhead.
But everything that he said just now,
So that's not how the
I heard him
climate
say before
accord went.
insulin.
It was just a
I'm the one
pledge
that
to
got
lower
the
their
insulin
own
down
stuff.
for the seniors.
There was no
I
like
took care of the seniors.
getting into
What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody.
go.
And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people, but
Good
we're
laugh,
destroying
Joe.
our
Good laugh.
country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be
They're
taking
not.
over Social Security. He is destroying
gonna get
Social
Social
Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
That is a Republican thing that they want
The
to do.
idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones.
He always
of
reminds me of a
consequence.
Muppet.
We're not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to? The United States can't get us under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one.
We are,
We're making
per
significant
capita.
progress. By 2035,
Don't pick your
we will have
nose.
cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps.
Would it be
where
funny if
thousands
Joe
of
like
young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like
ripped
Peace
ass and
Corps.
did like a cup of
And we're
cheese
gonna-
fan?
We're moving in directions that are going
Trump.
to significantly change the elements of cause
many
of pollution.
How many
But
MAGA
the
voters do you
idea
think you would get?
That he claims that he has the biggest heart up here, and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate. I've not seen any indication of that. And
No.
by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
Oh, time's up.
So every day, millions of Americans
stopped
struggle
himself.
just to
Good
make
for you,
ends
Joe.
meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right
There you
now,
go.
everybody making under $170,000 pays 6%
Or
of their
make the
income,
companies
of their
give
paycheck
pensions.
every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security.
He does.
He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare.
He said
both
it
times.
the last
And that's
7 or 8
and
years.
If you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea
Here we
that
go.
we
Come
don't
on, Joe,
need to
spit it
protect
out.
our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I
And
said,
it still
we're in a
sucks.
circumstance where 400,000 people,
I should be laughing at this stuff.
40
It's
million
so
people
sad.
would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants,
Stop jumping
another
around.
$8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years.
All my life.
I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation.
This is wild.
The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military.
This is
It's
wild.
a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security.
Oh my God, they're
putting them
not.
onto Medicare, Medicaid.
They're not.
Putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing.
He wants to talk about lies, and then he
really
just throws
coming
that
back.
shit out
I've
there.
never seen such anger in our country before.
That's true.
President Biden?
That's true.
The
That's the
idea
truest
that
thing he's
veterans
ever
are not
said.
being taken care of. I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he said he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these
Trump's controlling himself really well.
Illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue. But the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child for many families.
He's going to talk about
the cost of child care for two children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
I want to know who the other 19 people are.
He doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that Afghan.
Who's this? Vance is here? What
horror show? The most embarrassing moment
have someone
in the history
younger than
of our
retirement
country.
age?
He didn't
okay,
fire.
I hear you, but we don't.
Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons,
18 million people?
From mental institutions?
I'm with you,
Did
Vance.
you fire
we need
anybody
people that
that
aren't
allowed
dust.
our country
If
to
you
be
look,
destroyed?
I'm really proud of this.
Our country is being
thumbnail
destroyed
that I
as you
did
and I
at
sit
work.
up here and waste a lot of time on this debate.
My job
This shouldn't be
to
a
make this
debate.
thumbnail.
He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country.
Rubber, you're glue.
Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant.
This much.
He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters.
Why would he want it destroyed?
I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election,
I want to know what they mean by
country
destroyed.
doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one.
It's true.
Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted.
He had a number, not this many or this many or whatever.
One from best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is knowing doing anything to deal with childcare. He did very for
He didn't
virtually
say anything
nothing
about
to
childcare.
We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden.
Facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
Yeah.
And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire.
Yes,
so everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country.
No.
The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
They brought money to their investors.
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about he's increased
most punchable orange face ever.
He will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more, because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the
everything we import.
Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term.
The deficit with China.
The opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up,
Jesus.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy.
Yeah,
we have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China.
Oh my God.
So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something.
This guy.
Do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're into.
He can't because it's too much money.
By all means.
Tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country. And he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border. It started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog. That's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him, because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs
the
coming
trafficking
across
he's
our border
talking
now
about
is the largest we've
people
ever had by
bringing
far.
women across
President
the
Trump,
border.
thank you, President
Not
Biden.
necessarily for anything bad.
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together. This
Yeah,
bipartisan
the Republicans
deal.
shut down
More
because of
fentanyl
Trump.
machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill.
Weaponize
It's
the
a
government.
really good bill.
It's a really
we
good
need
bill.
those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard.
I like
in
that
every
Joe doesn't
country
know
in Asia in
anything
terms
about
of
these
precursors
machines.
for fentanyl.
Roll over.
And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the
They roll
technology
over
to be able to put
the
it
drugs
together.
and they detect
That's
the
what we have
drugs.
to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans
like
in the
angry.
throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the
Joe's
treatment they
angry.
need.
Trump's pouty.
Because this does pertain to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had two cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world?
He's going to stutter this
into
up.
Your 80s.
First of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing.
That's how old Biden is.
Awful lot of
He
people,
still thinks it's all millions of dollars.
The whole idea.
He's Dr. Evil.
We used to have 40% of the market.
$1 million.
Those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product.
Fancy nailed it.
I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds
awesome.
left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before.
He looks so much like my
we're the envy of
father-in-law.
the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our
Swing
word,
and a miss.
and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and our those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
He does send love letters.
Former President
to
Trump,
Putin.
to follow up, you would
That
be
was a good
82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them. As
There
you
he
know.
goes.
We made
As
it
you
public.
know, I
He took
talked
none.
about
I'd
it.
like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And,
I love when
we
Joe
knock on
laughs at
wood
him.
wherever
Like,
we
that
may
makes
have
me
wood,
laugh so hard.
that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter.
Championships
but
at
I'm
his club.
as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's
Dr. Ronnie Jackson.
He was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one.
At least he said Jackson.
One of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
A specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Devolve into something stupid.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there.
And a civil war.
Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed.
I don't know what
right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
I forgot that was the question.
What he said.
Oh, here we go.
Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. Not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me.
I wonder if he
But now he's
called
going to
Putin
take
ahead
the
of time,
whole
like,
thing
I'm going to
from
talk
this
tough.
man right here.
I don't mean it,
That's a
sweetie.
war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with
answer
Ukraine
the
and
fucking
Russia.
question, dude.
Because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're
See,
running
he
out of
can't-
people.
he
They're
can't
running out
answer
of
it.
soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's
Because
so
if he
sad.
says he'll accept it,
They've lost so many people. And
screws
they've
with
lost
his
those
base. If he
gorgeous
says
cities with the
he
golden
won't,
domes that are
he
1,000
screws with
years
moderates.
old. All because
like
of him
undecided
and
voters.
stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked.
So he's
if I were
focusing
President
on
Trump,
this.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins?
Stay
Yes
on
or
him.
no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these on
He's
in
got
a
more
week.
proof.
But I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the
Oh, my
horrible
God.
job he did. He's
Oh, my
destroying our
God.
country.
You
I
were
would
gonna
be
run the
very happy
entire
to
time.
be someplace else in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand
Yeah,
it.
51.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all.
There is.
And I tell you what,
But it's not the
I
evidence
doubt
he's
would
thinking
you
of.
accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
Oh,
We'll
shit.
be right back with more from the
Oh,
CNN
shit.
presidential debate,
Is
live from
It's
Georgia.
supposed to be over. That was 90 minutes. That was
Here we go again. This election is heating up.
That was wild. All right, a lot of shit said, but that last little burn. Ooh. You saw the Trump face. It's coming. I can't believe they can't stay on topic for 10 seconds. They should ask Biden if he'll accept the results. And Biden needs to say, like, yeah. Yeah. But they don't. Of course, they don't ask the same questions. It's weird. It's weird they don't ask the same. I think they should have to hold them to the same situation. And then what about what you did versus what you're going to do? Like, that's what I want to know is what they're going to do. And if it's stay the course or whatever. Yeah, this is wild. This commercial is rough. What is this pound? Hashtag square? I don't know what the blue square is. I'll have to look that up later. Man, the fact that you can call what they're going to say is just sad. In both cases, you can basically just predict what they're going to say. I haven't been into politics that long. Like, really, Obama. Obama was the first one, and I wasn't even that into it then. Because none of the presidents, I don't know, nothing that tragic happened. 9/11 was awful, but since then, to me, in my what affects me, nothing has affected me like that ever. But I feel like we're headed that way. I posted an article recently by a guy in Time magazine who's a historian who's studied civil wars all over the world, like all throughout history. And according to this guy, we're pretty close. We're pretty close to something. Not necessarily violent, but I think we can see the writing on the wall. So hopefully none of that happens and we're prepared for it. Our intelligence guys. So, because we do need to get back somewhere where we're moderate and can get along and agree on things and the basics. I think we're getting caught up too much. Me too. I'm guilty. In these dumb little things that these clowns all say. And it's not great. I'm not proud of it. It's not that I don't think they're both liars. Like they said, Biden was part of the original like super predator thing that they put on black people. He is super involved and responsible for some of the stuff happening in Gaza and the fact that we're not being stronger on Netanyahu. Like, we could pressure the shit out of that guy. Do we want to stymie Hamas? Yes. Do you want to murder like all of the Palestinians? No. But that's what's happening. So they think that Netanyahu thinks that, we're going to crush Hamas by just liquidating Palestine. And that's not how you get rid of terrorists. That's not it. So, yeah, it's not good. Anyway, so Biden is part of that. He's got me stuttering now, which isn't good. But we're back. Here we go. Let's see.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President.
Okay, so Biden's going to go after him about his track record and his felonies. And what else? His infidelity. Giant meteor 2024. It's not that bad. Trump is going to... I hate the premise that it's the lesser of two evils. Technically that's true, but that's not the case. I don't think Biden's anywhere near the evil part of this spectrum. But yeah, so Trump is going to go after immigration. He's going to go after immigration. He's going to talk about that Social Security bullshit. And what else? What else do you think he's going to talk about? Immigration is going to be number one. Oh, I can't tell because he's such a maniac. He could go off the rails now that he's been called a whiner.
President Biden, you have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one,
you should have said only
we have
term.
to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that
not fair.
Nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that will be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after when he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example,
it was 50%,
he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along where it's happening now, and everybody in America.
Every other nation is doing
that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and other things that are causing health problems for people across the country.
They're taking out lead pipes in my neighborhood.
Down inflation and give people
through the Biden.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Now it's just going to
like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything.
Not a complaint.
He doesn't do. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened.
He just
Iran
crossed
was
100.
broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history.
You didn't do anything to build the military.
The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on.
Yeah.
All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA.
I don't know what he's talking about.
All of these things, we're a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
I don't know what he's talking about. Does anybody know what he's talking about?
Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Anderson Cooper. They have to stand there? What are they doing? They're just panning the cameras around the presidents? What? What is this? Was that it?
The president and former presidents making their way off the CNN debate stage. Looks like.
All right, let's see. I can watch that later. I think there was a clear. Let me move this window so I can actually look at you guys. I don't think there was a clear winner in this debate, and I'm scared of that. Trump withheld military aid to Ukraine in 2019 on the condition that, yeah, he was talking about that earlier. Well, he didn't. He was talking about Biden withholding aid for something, for them giving up information on him. I don't know. He did a lot of things where he flip-flopped it, but I don't think a lot of his constituents and people that are already voting for him, I don't think this debate moved the needle for anyone. That's the thing. I think this was kind of pointless. I don't think there's anyone that's like, oh, yeah, and I'm going to vote for Trump, or, oh, no, I can't vote for Trump. I don't think anyone switched anything because they just did the same talking points. It's like watching the news every morning. You could have done that instead. So I apologize for bringing you on. It was kind of fun to make fun of them in real time. With 6 of you. That's nice. That's nice. It was mostly me and Vance talking, but it's good to see that there are 5 of you. Somebody forgot it was on in the background. I hope somebody got to see some of Wally's family dinner. That looked fun. I was arguing with my family, so I'm a little stretched thin right now. But I got here for you guys because I said I would do it for Michelle, who asked for it, which is good because I really wanted to do it anyway. But I think as my first one, it wasn't great. I apologize. But I think we're in a weird place, and I think it's a scary time worldwide, all over the world, and I think we need the right people in the right place. And I don't think a liar who sympathizes with dictators and autocrats is the way to go. I just don't think that's the case. I mean, I don't like either of them, really. I really like Biden's record so far for the country. I think he's doing a great job by almost every metric. Does he have some issues? Absolutely. Is he old as shit? Absolutely. Has he surrounded himself with people that are super competent at their jobs? Mostly. Not everybody. Yeah, my vote, if I was voting for Trump, it wouldn't matter because I'm in Illinois. But I'm still going to do it. I want him to see that he lost the popular vote by another 4 million, which wasn't the case last election. These polls scare the shit out of me because they haven't changed much. The polls haven't changed enough after the 34 felony convictions. It didn't really change anything. And him saying that they're going up and up and up they're both right at 48%, basically. So depending on, it's like 46 to 51, depending on which poll you do. So, and it swings for either of them. Scary is that Biden's generally under. I don't think the polls really are going to count for another month or two. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot till August. I don't think they're going to mean anything. But we'll do what we got to do, right? So get out, vote, talk to people calmly, explain your side, whatever side it is. Maybe you get them, maybe you don't. I don't know. It's all we can do. Vote local, vote Senate, vote Congress, do your homework. That's the tough thing. Doing your homework on these guys, the local guys, is where your vote matters more. So get involved in your local community, especially if they're pushing, Supreme Court's pushing everything into the state's hands. Like, make sure your state knows what's up and what you want. Drive your car into anyone with a Moms for Liberty bumper sticker. That's imperative this season, this election season. Make sure you have insurance first, like you can have insurance. So, and don't do it more than once. Like, just get one and then let the next guy get the next one. We got to do this all together. Not like crush their car, just, good fender bender. Make them get all Karen. Yeah, because they're kind of Nazis, right? Book banning, that was a Nazi thing. That was a big Nazi thing. Anti-trans, all that stuff. Yeah, so I think we have this is an important election. However you look at it, it's important, and it's your part as an American to vote the way you want to vote. Would I prefer everybody vote the way I want them to vote and see everything the way I see it? More or less, like I would. That would be great. Everybody does. No matter who you are, you would love to see people kind of want the same things you want value-wise, right? That'd be awesome. It'd be weird to be that homogenized. It's not like human nature, but it would be cool. I mean, imagine the stuff you could get done. So, anyway, hopefully next Tuesday we'll be able to be in the new studio. It's just going to be me again. I'm reaching out to my, not guests, but they might be guests, tomorrow. So that gives them, Saturday. So they'll have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday to consider what they need to consider. I feel like that's enough warning without being, I don't want them to be too defensive, right? So we're going to air some grievances. So if you haven't already, this isn't our normal show. So if you don't like and subscribe to this episode, I totally understand. We're not really going to be doing this unless it becomes popular. Like, if you guys want it to be, that's fine. I mean, we're all buddies. This is more about the community. I'm not trying to split the community. We already knew where I stood, and I feel like I kept it together. So, for the most part. So, I just want to I don't want to do that many beef episodes either, but I do want to do some corrections, or try to get some corrections in the community. And it's hard because we'll get into that more on Tuesday. But thanks for coming in. If you want to like and subscribe or leave a comment's even better. This is a chatty one. So if you're watching this later for some reason, if you didn't watch the debate yourself, if you did, don't watch this coverage. Go watch, Anderson Cooper. He's way better at this than I am. But yeah. I hope you guys know it's important to exercise your right to vote from now on. It's going to probably be like this the rest of our lives and beyond until we hit Thunderdome. Then it's going to be different. Then we rule with our fists. We vote with the crazy spiked things on the front of our cars. So, thanks again. I love you guys. The best audience in YouTube. I mean that. I visit other YouTube live streams, and it's just a bunch of the same people. I guess we have the same people too, but our same people are better same people. So, yeah. So I'm glad we got to make fun of both candidates a little bit, and hopefully I had more fun than I thought I did. But time to get out on the patio. Love you guys. Have a good week, and peace out. We'll see you Tuesday.